Hello, and welcome to Michell Consulting's webinar series for our Michell University. Today we're going to be working with Infor FACTS, and we're going to be completing our series on the end-of-period process within FACTS. For purposes of the demo today, we'll be using FACTS version 7.7 for our demo, and we're going to talk about the general ledger at this point. To recap what we've done, and this webinar is being recorded, so it'll be available on our website. You can visit us at www.mitchellgroup.com to view this as with our other series. So let's look here and talk about the end of period, also referred to as month end. In FACTS, there are 5 modules that need to be closed at the end of a period to begin another period. These are the sales orders, the inventory, the purchasing, the accounts receivable, the accounts payable, and the general ledger. There's really no particular order in which these need to be done. It could be done in any order, but typically what happens is the sales, the inventory, and the purchases, okay, since these are considered operation, these tend to get closed first. What happens is the user will actually complete these 3 at the end of the business day, at the end of the month, so they can start processing the first day of the next month. Receivables and payables could stay open for a few days because, again, these are mostly like you may want to keep your receivables open for some cash receipts. You may want to keep accounts payable open. You may want to write a check on the first of the month and date it for the last day of the last month and so on. So these can stay open for a little bit. And typically general ledgers tend to stay open just a little bit longer too. The thing is you need to close these before you continue on. Within FACTS, you can post to the current period and 1 period forward. So for example, if sales order is closed, let's say all these are closed and general ledger is not, you can't then close sales orders again. You can't be 2 periods ahead. And I'll show you what I mean by that. For example, if we go to sales order and we go to any of the daily registers or any of the register reports, you will see here. So for purpose of the demo, I have it set for the current period in general ledger is June of 2010. So you can see that my sales has been closed. So my SO current period, which is my sales order current period, is July of 2010, and my general ledger current period is still June of 2010. So this means I've closed out my sales orders, but I haven't closed out my general ledger. Now we can operate like this, and you can post. But if I try now to go in to close the month in sales order again, it's not going to let me because then the current period would be August, so I can't have that skip of more than 1 month in between. And again, you can see this on a lot of the different modules. So for example, if we go into, say, accounts payable, and again, we look at any of the registers, again, you can see the current period and accounts payable is July. So again, that one was closed. You see June is closed. And you can see this, for example, if we go to a document entry, and you can see it there. And again, it's throughout the system. If we go to purchase order, you can see the same thing here. If we go into, again, we can see here, not this one, but the actual registers, we can see that, again, so you can see here. So you can see our PO current period is July, our AP current period is July also, but our general ledger is still June. So what we're going to do is we're going to close these. So we've closed them all, and now we're just going to go to the general ledger, which is the final one. So let's go through that process. And again, you'll notice in the menus, each menu has an end of period. So if we look at sales, you can see our end of period. And again, it tells you what we need to do in each end of period. If we go to purchase order, again, you can see the end of period and so on. So let's go to general ledger, and let's do the same thing. Let's look at our end of period. Here, all we really need to do is close, do what they call a true close within the general ledger, and then go ahead and run our financials. Now, within this end of period close, there are 2 options here that we can do. We can do what's known as a true close and a false close. I'll explain what each one means. You can see that a true closeout will actually close the current period. So we'll close out June of 2010. The account balances and all the budget will be updated, and all the journal entries would be deleted. And it will actually, any reversing entries you set up would be created, and you're recurring. And it tells you here, the following must be closed to perform the true closeout. So you can see here how we've done our inventory control. If we're using job costing, we need that, our manufacturing control, and so on. Now, we normally go in here to run a false close. Here, what we can do is we can go in and we can click OK, and what that's going to do is process the record, and it's going to update the general ledger. So what this does, it updates the financials. Typically what happens is, people will call us, they'll say, well, I did a journal entry here, and I entered journal entries. So I debit and credit some accounts, but I don't see that on my trial balance. I don't see it on any of the reports. For example, like I don't see it here on any of the financial reports. That's because the true closeout, the false closeout will update those ending buckets. So anytime you do journal entries to the system, you will need to go in and actually run that period end and do it as a false close. So here you can do it here. All right, so let's go through here. Let's make sure we have everything taken out. We have to do our inventory control and so on. So let's check this information. And again, you can see we're doing that close there. And then we run our financial reports. So we'll just make sure everything's closed. We're going to check our inventory control. So let's run our adjustment registers. We'll set our printer. Again, because I have to set my date because I'm using June, so that's 2010. Just tell me it's not the system date. I have my computer set on a demo system date. So here you can see our adjustment registers. So we're going to look at all our adjustment registers here. I'm going to say yes to the DL distribution. And again, so we're going to update that. So if we look here at our end of period, we already ran our adjustment register, so let's just do that again, make sure everything's printed. So we're good there on that. So let's go back here to our main menu. Let's go into General Ledger. We're going to go through our end of period. So we see here we have some other modules we're going to have to close. So for purpose of the demo today, I'm not going to close all these for the actual demo. I'm just going to go through the process because I'm going to have to close these out in future demos. So we'll just go through the actual process. But here what we would do is we would actually go in, and when we execute the true closeout, we would set this to yes. Okay, so we indicate. So entering a Y indicates that the user is going to perform a true closeout during which the month end is closed. Okay, entering an N, like we said, would be to have a false close, and what that's going to do, it's going to go ahead and set me to be update my information. It's going to update my ending balances, and so on. All right, so we would actually do that, and we would do the true close. The other thing we need to do now is run our financials. So what we need to do is go into our financial reports, and we can see here that we can run corresponding financial reports. And we do have a webinar, a detail on how to actually create the financial reports. So we're going to put our period. So we're going to go in and we're going to put in June of 2010. Okay, here we can select our report groups. I'm just going to, again here, I can select my specific report groups. So let's say I want to do my profit and loss. And I want to do my, let's say here, company one. And again, my reports to run, I can actually go here and look at my different groups. Let's actually just do all groups. I want to make sure we have data in all of them. So I'm going to do all groups. And we're going to select our reports to run. And here, which is nice, is we can actually do two at the same time. So what I want to do is I want to do my balance sheet for all accounts. So I'm going to add that. And I'm going to do my profit and loss, and so on. So I'm going to do these two, and you can see them here. I'm going to run, and we're going to see here is that we're looking at our profit and loss. And again, we ran those for all the different control formats, so we're going to get each one of our different branches. What's nice about setting up those financial reports with those controls, I can do everything at one time. So in this case, what I've done is I have, for my demo, I have two branches. So I have a profit and loss for each branch, and then I have a combined one, and the same with my balance sheet. So I have them set up that way with the combined. So again, here we can just run our reports. You can see here our different financial reports. Let's close all these, and a lot of them. So we've done our close. So in the general ledger, the only really thing is the end of period update. What we do is we do the end of period, and we would go here. We would select yes. Unfortunately for the demo, I can't because I need to do webinars on these other topics, and I don't want to close these out at this point. So what we do is we just set this to yes, and we click OK, and you can see the process is the same. It'll run through. It'll give you the end of period, and we're closed. So let's recap. Let's go back a moment and see what we're talking about with the end of period. The end of period in FACTS is something that needs to be done in 5 modules. So you can see here that we have on our main menu, we have the sales orders, the inventory control, the purchases, the accounts receivable, the accounts payable, and the general ledger. In this case, because of my demo, I'm also using payroll and job costing, but we will have other webinars on these, actually detailed webinars on these closings in future training sessions. So once we close these modules, we're done. We can continue. Again, each module has an end of period. So if you look here, so for example, if we look at accounts payable and we look at our end of period, we have our reports that we run. You can see here, and then our end of period update. So again, you can see that I can't do the current AP because of those 2 months separation. My current month in accounts payable is July, so I won't be able to close that until I close out the general ledger. So that's contained in the month end. And the month end in general ledger is fairly simple. It's just one step. It just depends on the other modules. So what we do is we just go into our general ledger. We do our end of period update. And again, we would set this for a true closeout. A true closeout will actually close out the month. I would have to run this with a false closeout, which is when I have it equal to no. I have to run this every time I want to update my trial balance or my balances on my financials. So if we do journal entries in the system, we need to run this as a false closeout to update the balances before we can run any trial balances or reports. So to recap what we've talked about the process in FACTS called the end of period or end of month. This is a process that's done in several modules. There is no particular order of the modules. Typically, they have to be done, and what happens is the operations tend to be done first, or they can all be done at the same time. You may want to keep these open for a couple days, again, just to enter some incoming payments or cash receipts and some checks. And then we have to close our general ledger. If we're using payroll or job costing or other modules, we would do it through here. But again, you can see that when you go into these modules, you can see each one has its end of period. So again, for example, you can see the end of period update. And again, you would see something like this. So you'd go ahead and run. So this is June. So you would actually run this update. And then from there, you'd be able to go on and continue on with the rest of the program. So if I was to enter yes here, and yes, okay, the general ledger would behave the same way, like that. So we have our end of period done and manufacturing control. And again, the same would hold true for payroll. If you're using payroll, you have that end of period. Again, we have the end of period update. I don't want to run those now because I have some other webinars to be doing on those other topics as we go throughout the training series. So we're just going to leave that. So that concludes our webinar today. Again, we talked about the end of period closing in general ledger, which is the easiest of all the modules. There's really no reports to run. The end of period in general ledger just requires you to run the end of period. And again, you have to make sure all your other modules are closed. You can see I still have these open. Again, once these are all closed, I can do the true closeout. It's just a matter of clicking OK. It's the same process you're seeing here. The only difference is you'll get that extra screen that's going to say is, to enter the YES for yes. Once that's done, your current period's closed, and you can continue on, and you can run all your financial reports. Okay, so that concludes our webinar today. We want to thank you for your time. As we said, this webinar is being recorded. It'll be available on our website, so you can visit us at www.michellgroup.com to view this as well as our others in our training series. And once again, we thank you for your time.